It sounded so good. Take the train, you and I never come back. It'd be nice too. Was I expecting too much? Now I'm stuck here.
Everybody, welcome back to another Buzz Slayers interview. We are here today with Daisy Spratt, who is... Hello! Thank you, by the way, so much for doing this. I super appreciate it. I have a lot of stuff to ask you, like I said, and you know, I know you have a new single, Paris, coming out. That is, when is that set to come out, actually? When is the release? The 4th?
The 5th. So I don't know what that, it might, I don't know what the time zone is, but for you
for
guys.
Me, it's the 4th.
It might be the 4th for you.
So yeah,
5th Wednesday for us. So it's only a couple of days away, which is exciting.
Got it. Okay. Well, I wanted to start off with really just talking a little bit about the, you know, what built up to this track, which is, now that I spoke to you a little bit briefly earlier about it, it's going to be a 5-song EP, which will probably be, I mean, seeing that it's already early in 2025, Paris is coming out already in February, second month. I'm sure the full EP is going to be complete within this year, right? Probably the spring, something like that. Okay,
Most
great. Okay. And so, what's the, so far, and we're very familiar with some of the songs from the EP, Green Eyes, Winter Coat. And I did just listen to The Day the Santas Came to Midtown, which was just like these. Okay. So just for anyone who's just getting used to Daisy's music right now, watching this and is going to dive into the stuff, your music, for me anyway, is just, it's very, of course, it's very pop. It's pop music. It can be, it's like a cross of, like, what I like about it is how you produce the stuff too. Some of the songs can be very like vast and spacious, you know, and they can build like a big atmosphere. While other songs can just be like, this is like a pop, you know, colorful pop song, you know. But what's great about a lot of your stuff, one of my favorite aspects of it, is that, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, you're very honest lyrically. And so, you know, what are the things that, you know, like, for example, Green Eyes. Winter Coat. For Winter Coat. So, like, give me the moment that Winter Coat, like, where do you pull your inspiration from to create your music? To what makes you go, I need to write a song about this?
So Winter Coat was a weird one because I wrote like 1 or 2 verses that turned into that song just randomly one day when I was sitting on the couch and I was looking outside and I just was imagining leaves falling in the fence line, and just and all these lyrics came to me. So I wrote them down and I didn't use them for ages. And then when my husband got sick in 2021 and went through chemo, I guess when I got into the studio the start of 2022, so I wanted to write about like little moments from that particular year in 2021. And so that particular line, I'll be your armor like a winter coat, became the tagline, and then it morphed into the whole song. So when we wrote about it, the whole song is actually about when you get married or you have a partner and you make a vow to be there for them in sickness and in health. And so for me, that was quite literal, like being there for him in the sickness time. And of course you want to stand by that, but it doesn't mean that it's easy, and it can be really difficult being in that. And despite that difficulty, I wanted to try and be that protection and be that support for him in the middle of the storm that he was going through. So that's kind of the whole idea behind that song.
Wow, that's deep, man. That's deeper than I even thought. Because here's the thing with, first of all, you know, on a personal level, I can relate to that quite a bit, more than you think. But I think that, you know, when you listen to a song like Winter Coat, you get the gist of it. You know what I mean? You get the idea of that, you know, kind of love and protection aspect of it, of course, especially from the chorus. But, you know, this is why it's interesting to me finding out where songs came from, because you don't really know how deep it goes. And the other part of the beauty of a song like that is people connect with it and they relate it to their own situation.
That's right. Yeah.
And that's such a beautiful thing, you know, but that's a pretty intense song. What about Green Eyes? What was that? Where did that come from?
Green Eyes was actually about a specific moment. So just randomly one night we were going to bed and he was listening to music, and my husband's not a very good singer, which is quite funny, but he's very entertaining, and he's singing along to Green Eyes by Coldplay. and we're laughing and singing along to so that's why it's called Green Eyes. It's based off the song by Coldplay.
Right.
And so we're singing along to the song, and then I just randomly started crying because I was having such a nice moment with him, and it was so special, and I just wanted to make it last forever, but it doesn't. Nothing does. And so then I got emotional and sad, realizing that this is one day we're probably not going to be here, or one day you're going to go, or I'm going to go, and I'm not going to get to experience this again with you. So then I got all emotional, and then all these lyrics came to me, and I was like, honey, 1 second. And then I just quickly had to write them down before I forgot. And then that's how that whole song came together. So it's literally about an actual specific moment that I was really enjoying and was really special. And I wanted to hold on to it as long as I could.
In terms of producing the music, the part of the songs, like how does that do you team up with people? How does that come into play?
So each song's different, like Rob. So on all of these songs for this particular EP project that I've been releasing, he obviously produced all of those tracks, and he's really great because he comes up with like little BV things that would sound cool in the background, and like little melodies or how to put the chorus together, and which I really appreciate. It just brings the whole song together so well. But sometimes I've already got the chords and the general melody pre-written. So for example, all the songs from the pregnancy sessions were mostly finished before I got into the studio. Right. And so when I got into the studio, then Rob just he was really helpful in just tidying things up, maybe altering a line here, adding like slightly changing a melody here to just, create a bit more dynamic. Whereas something like Wintercoat, I only had like 1 or 2 verse ideas written. The rest of it we came up with all in the studio. Wow. And that was definitely a shared perspective on all that. I'm not going to take all the credit for all of the melodies in that. Like Shannon and Rob brought so much to that track as well. But the inspiration behind that, we wanted it to be kind of like, that's my daughter, kind of like Dreams by Fleetwood Mac. Like we wanted it to be a song that sounds great produced, but if I played it acoustic with the chords, it's got the same sort of vibe. It's the same 3 chords for the whole entire song.
Right. Yeah.
Which is what we wanted.
So you actually put that in mind when you were making the song. Like, I want to be able to perform this with an acoustic 100%. Guitar in my hand. Wow, that's brilliant too. That's a smart move. See, this is interesting too, because it's like, and it's not really about who gets credit. It's more like, how you team up with people that you can, so it's something that you're obviously lucky to have people that you can line up with your creative vision with,
100%. And you can great and just mesh so well, and like you throw stuff out there and you go, oh, how about this, and like, oh yeah, that's great, why don't we just add this bit at the end, and then suddenly you come up with this amazing whole thing together.
What about like, so you mentioned like for the pregnancy sessions, you had a lot of that mapped out already. So do you have a way to do scratch tracks on your own, or how do you do that?
Oh, so I just use like voice recorder. I actually use Evernote as an app. I've been using that for like 10 years. That's the main place where I go in. I put all my notes, and I've got like a song notebook, and it's just got all these songs in there. And I record the audios in there, and I sometimes forget, but I try and put the date so I actually remember what day I actually started writing it as well. So I normally do that, and then I take it into the studio and be like, oh hey, I've got this idea, this is how it goes, and I'll play it on the guitar, and then Rob will be like, oh, that's awesome, like why don't we do this, whatever, and then then we finish it together. Right.
And so the pregnancy sessions themselves, was that 2022? I read
2023. I was trying to remember.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I should
that's
okay.
That.
And so it's like, so your little one's just brand new.
Yeah. I was pregnant when I did it. So I did that purely just because I wanted to say I did this while I was pregnant, and it came out a couple weeks after I gave birth. So it was a nice special season to be able to mark that, becoming a mom for the first time.
I love that you do little scratch tracks with Evernote, and then you go back and play them back, and
I've got so many in there.
There's probably 100, but it's like then they turn into something, you know what I mean? Some of them just go, but then some of them turn into something, So I also,
it's my favorite parts actually is like so many times I'll have like, and I got hundreds in there, and sometimes it's 2 lines, sometimes it's like a whole song, sometimes it's just a chorus, whatever it is. And like sometimes they sit there for like 2 years. And then I go into the studio and I'm flicking through, I'm like, oh, this is really cool, I think we could do something with this. And then it starts from something so small and turns into this finished project. And I think that's so beautiful, to create something from almost from nothing, really. It's just I love that whole process. It's my favorite.
If I were to ask you who you think your top 5 musical influences of all time would be, I know, see, there it goes.
I can think of a few. I'll see if I can think of 5.
You don't have to do 5. You could just go, and it could be anything. It could be like, you know, maybe, you know, your mom played records when you were a little child, and that, you know, there has to be at some point in your life when you were younger, at somewhere, something had to spark this, you know what I mean? And make you either write poetry or start writing music. Like, how did that come to well, I know I read your bio. I know that you did, you know, lessons when you were 10 or something like you did, you know, lessons when you were 10.
I started guitar at 10. Yeah.
Right.
Which did help. Well, my dad, so my mom and dad ran like a church in Iowa. I grew up in the United States when I was a kid. And so they ran this little local church, and my dad would play guitar. So I was around music a lot just from that perspective. Really young age, like 3 and 4. And my mom would sing. So I remember that part. But my mom was both my parents are very into music. But I remember when I was really little, I would have been like 3. My mom always played like In Excess in the car. And I loved, well, I can't remember what album it was, but I think song 21 on the album was Don't Change the World.
Right.
So that was like, that's probably one of my earliest memories of like music, was probably that. I remember my mom took me to see Sarah Brightman when I was 5. So that was the first that I saw live. And apparently I said to my family that I want to be a singer like her one day. That's apparently what I said. I don't remember.
You don't remember it, but maybe that's what your mom says you said. Yeah.
That's what they say. So obviously that did end up coming to fruition later. And I was surrounded by country music. Obviously, living in the United States, country music is such a huge part of music anyway. So like, I know Keith Urban's not American, but Keith Urban was a huge influence. But Shania Twain was a huge influence as well. I loved Shania Twain, huge fan. Nice. Still am. Her Up albums were just on repeat all the time when I was a kid. Nice. And then as I got older, I got into like emo music. Green Day. I was a huge diehard Green Day fan. Oh yeah. American Idiot album when I was 10. So 10, 11, 12. That's like all I would talk about. I had their posters everywhere. I have their like t-shirt. I was obsessed. So I'm not sure why. I just really love them. Still love that album.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Which is very different to what I do. But I loved like rock music, punk music, emo music. And then I got obsessed with Taylor Swift. And I remember I used to just watch her interviews all the time when she first started. I still like her music, but when she first started out, when she was like 19 and 20, 21, like I was just fascinated by her, watching her interviews and like how she would wake up at 3 a.m. and write songs, and just like the way that she came up with her music. I was really inspired by that.
What about like, I mean, now you're a new mom, but you know, in terms of, you know, performing live, do you actually gig? Do you do live shows where you're at?
Yeah, I do. Last year, 2024 was the most amount of gigs I did, and this year's already been pretty hectic. I've been gigging every weekend. I gig mostly local, where I live, just because it's just easier. It means, I mean, I still get back late sometimes anyway. I still get back at midnight, depending on how long I've gigged for. But I prefer to try and stay local, just because I can still sometimes have dinner with the family. Then I pack the car and I go out and I gig, and then I come home and my husband's put her to sleep. So it's a nice arrangement. But yeah, I do that. I do weddings, and I do birthdays. Like if people want to book me for birthdays, it's always acoustic. So it's just me and a guitar. And I also do duo gigs with a friend of mine named Dan, which is really fun. And we do a lot, like we do like duets, or we do like where he plays guitar with me on my songs, and he'll do like solos in the background. So that's really fun as well. And it's like a bit of a different it still sounds similar to the recordings of those songs, but it's just a bit of a different take.
So after Paris, what's the next one after that?
The fifth one's called Blue Fire, which is is actually a more stripped back song anyway. I probably wouldn't do acoustic, but like an acoustic version, because it's already quite stripped back in the actual version that we did. That one's pretty cool. That one's I purposely am releasing that last as part of the project because it's a more reflective song, pretty much talking about how we got through it all and everything's actually okay now, and now we can move on with our lives and move forward. So that's why I purposely put that one last.
Right, it's a closer. It's like a closer
song of that whole season. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. And so, it's like now I'm kind of like, all right, let's get the summer. Let's get all the seasons.
The Paris one's the most like for me, in my opinion, I think Paris is the most upbeat. Like you kind of like bop to it. It's like a really fun song. It's not sad. It's not a sad song. It's literally the whole song is just about, we had to cancel our Europe. This is before my husband even got sick, actually. We had to cancel our Europe trip because the pandemic hit and we couldn't travel.
Oh, right.
So, which meant we had to cancel Paris. That was part of the trip. And then he did get sick after that, which meant we couldn't travel in 2021. We did eventually get to do the trip in 2022, which was awesome. We went away for 3 months. The song,
wow.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was so much fun. So we got to travel through all different places in Europe. And I did get to go and visit Paris, and it was a very, very beautiful city. And but the song was about how it didn't matter. Like, being with you is my sweetest view, and I don't need Paris. I don't need any of those places as long as I've got you. So it's just this really happy, feel-good song.
In terms of performing live, as in comparison to being in the studio, do you like that as much? It feels like you definitely enjoy that as much.
Performing for me is it's like a love-hate relationship sometimes. Like, it's part of the job. Like, when you're an artist and you're writing music, you do still need to perform. Like, it's just part of what you do, and it's also a big part of the income as well. Going out and getting paid to perform and do gigs. So most of the time I love it. But there's definitely times where, like, I get disappointed with myself because I think I've bombed out on the gig and I don't think I've done very well, or I'm really exhausted. Like, there was a gig I did recently and I literally just had gastro and it was too late for me to cancel it. So I just pushed through and just did it. And and you don't really want to do that, but I also was just like, I don't like canceling on the day either. So I just did it. Whereas, like, it's different in the studio. It's private. People aren't watching me. I get to have this really fun experience of just gas bagging, like, for example, with Rob, and just chatting about what we're going to write about and about the story and all that sort of stuff. And you get to just be I feel a lot freer in the studio and a lot less afraid. Whereas when I'm performing, depending on what's happening, this isn't my only job. Like, I have a day job as well that I go and do, 2 days a week, and I do a little bit of that from home. So I can feel a bit overwhelmed sometimes, like when I'm prepping for a gig.
It's like when you go into the studio, you kind of know that you're going to come out like just being obsessed with the thing that you just created,
That's
like,
right.
like, I can't wait to, like, go in. Are you involved with the mixing process too? Do you sit in for the mixing?
Yeah, not all the time, but sometimes I do. Yeah. And I'll sit in and he'll go through all the vocal takes and he'll be like, oh, this one sounds good. And he's like, oh, I'm thinking we'll do
piece them together.
Yeah. So often I'll sit in for some of it and watch him do it, which is really fun.
Yeah, what a process that is, huh?
I don't know how to do any of that, but
and that's what I mean. It's like
skill in itself.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean when you watch someone doing that and you're just like, wow, like, oh my gosh, like how, because they learn the whatever they're using, the Pro Tools or Logic Pro, whatever they're using. Their whole skill is being able to work with that quickly. And when you watch someone take your song and then it's like you get this whole mix and you can talk about, oh, we should bring the vocal a little bit, maybe we should bring that synth back a little bit.
Yeah, because, like, I started out doing a lot of country music because I like country music. I still do. And I was pretty good at it when I started gigging. When I was 18, I did a lot of country style music. So I was like, oh, I'll go into country music. I'll kind of write country songs. So Love Like That was the first one that I released, and that's very quite country style. and it did
Yeah.
a bunch of others after that were sort of country or country pop. But when I
Mhm.
met Rob, it was really cool because I felt like he was really just he really just brought out who I really am and translating that into music. So Rob was a huge help and inspiration, I guess, if that's the right word, to with why I went down the path that I've gone down in terms of my musical style. Like
Yeah.
I didn't just randomly wake up and go, yeah, like let's do indie pop music. Rob really had, like he really helped steer in that direction based, I guess, on our conversations and the type of songs I was bringing in, and it kind of morphed into that as the
Yeah.
best way of reflecting me and reflecting the songs.
Yeah. Thank you for doing this. It was awesome talking to you. It was awesome learning about your process. No, it was
Thank you.
beautiful. Yeah, the inspirations, all that stuff. It's all, like I said, it's always different for everybody, and I love to hear your. So I feel good being able to hear like backdrop stories behind like Green Eyes and Winter Coat, and all the real inspirations and emotion that went behind those songs.
Paris, I imagine. Take a walk and